Hi, Mikhail. Um, this is in response to your request for file management stuff in Janus. Now, based on the requirements, or yeah, based on the problem that you demonstrated, uh, I think there are some tools in Janus that can actually solve a bit of that problem, but it does have a certain limitation. Um, it seems minor, but I know in a pipeline it could be a major thing as well. It has to do with the fact that um, between an underscore and a full stop or a period or a dot. Now, let's go on first. Let me demonstrate how it all works or how it can work initially for you. Right now, what you want to do is basically break down some of the folders in more precise hierarchies instead of flat. Now, if you have a look over here at the documentation, there is a thing under the look for scene naming convention and image output directory. Now, this is a part of the documentation that describes how Janus breaks out the hierarchy. It's all dependent upon how you you name your render pass or how the final output or rather the final breakout scene looks like. The more dots you have represents actually the excuse me, represents the folder structure, so that if you have sequence opening dot shot 01, you generate from the images folder sequence opening shot 01, and if you add a little bit more down the line, it will create subdirectories based off that syntax. So that's the first rule. In your case, it will be a simple matter actually of changing this underscore with a dot. Excuse me. Once you do that and you break out the scene, when you break out the scene, it turns out to be like this. Environment, key light, and actually it goes down here. This is a folder that I created a while ago. But this is actually the way it looks like. So you have your setup, environment, and then your key light. The only problem with this, actually, and this is what I want to get at, the only problem with this actually is the way the final EXR file will be renamed. And so it looks like this. If I go to setup, key light, and if I go down, the naming is actually with dots. It's not in the underscore. So that's the disadvantage to this method. If this is a bothersome thing, and I think it could be a bothersome thing, I think it's easy enough for me to actually be able for you to override the final output name. And I think I could probably accommodate a single subcommand for that. So, but if it's not a bother, then there you have it. There you can have this kind of syntax quite easily simply by changing the underscore with the dot. Now, there are other in order. I guess suppose in order to guess or rather preempt other concerns in the future, there are a lot of different things that you can do with output paths, because we have a lot of options here regarding subdirectories, and we have the absolute directory, which is basically the real override, and then we have subscene names. Now, let's say if I were to, I'll quickly go over this and to see what can be done, with it. Um, you can change. For example, you could use a combination of constant variables in order to get something, something, something more precise. If a subscene name is actually appended on top or after the setup. So for example, if I wanted to recreate what I just did a moment ago, instead of using the dot here, if I could just keep that if I wanted to. What I can do is actually use a subscene name and point this to the environment target group. For example, if I were to say that, let's look at the Janus documentation one more time, and let me look over to variable, actually, constant variables. And if I were to look at this constant variable called JN target group, or TGT-GRP, this refers to the target group name. If I were to go over to subc name, copy, paste that over there, and then added that subc name target group, what will happen is that, well, this is what will happen. Actually, let me remove the images here, so we'll start from scratch. So get rid of setup, and then I'll break this out. Okay, so now it's broken out. You see here the setup environment, which is this environment is actually referring to the target group, and then environment keylight, which is our pass name. So in a sense, this is what happens: setup, environment, environment keylight. Now again, it's still the full thing. The problem is you'll never get rid of this folder because this is actually the pass name, and underneath that is your actual environment underscore keylight exr files. But what if we wanted to go in there and then finally to have a keylight instead of environment keylight? We can actually do that within here. For example, we can say subc name, we can put a dot, and then we could say, and we wanted the keylight, right? So what we can do is maybe we'll use the notes. Just follow me along. JN notes %, and then instead of using this really as a note, what we can do is type in here keylight. What will happen is that the subc name is environment dot keylight, and then the pass name will be appended on top. So let's, if I were to do that, okay, and then here is supposed to be how it goes. No, in fact it didn't work. JN notes, subc name, oh fine, because I've forgotten to append. So let's do that again. Okay, so let's see. There we go. We have, this was the old one, this is the new one. But remember, it does put another one inside, and the reason for that is because of its current rule, in which the pass name must go inside a folder of the same name. Okay, so and there are many others actually. There are many others. We can use the output subdirectory to go inside. We can actually you can actually change your pass name into keylight and then recreate everything from there. The problem is if you change it to keylight, the final exr file will just be called keylight, and it would probably be harder to reference that on a, you know, for example, if you want to search for the actual file, you will have to search. It's difficult to actually identify the file within a within a flattened search, for example. So again, the main issue is actually the underscore. If you put a dot there, then it will do it right. But if you think an issue, there's an issue regarding the underscore in terms of the final XR name, then let me know. But at the same time, I think this is good enough. I think to have that some sort of control for the final output name is very important as well. So I think regardless of whether or not you need it, I'll put it in the next next rev or next build. But at the moment, if this is okay with you, then I suggest that you use this sort of solution. And if you want me to talk about more about Absolute Directory and how I string up these things, let me know, because there's a whole world of things you can do with it. Yeah, and that's it. Thanks for listening.